Welcome to SoulHygiene. Real conversations about life, love, forgiveness, grace, and God. I'm Miss TJ, and this podcast was born from the life God pulled me out of. After years of pain and trauma, He rescued me, renewed me, repurposed me, and showed me how to love life again in Him. Here we talk with guests who've walked through the fire or who are still walking through trials. Some are healing and others are champions for healing. Sometimes we cry, sometimes we laugh, but every story points back to hope. My prayer is that something you hear today reminds you, no matter how broken life feels, God still loves you and wants what's best for you. This is SoulHygiene, a mission of grace and restoration, helping victims become victorious. Welcome back, my brave and beautiful humans, to another episode of SoulHygiene. I have our wonderful friend, Mr. Rob, with us, and I'm really thankful, and that's obviously going to be the thing about our podcast today is thankfulness. But I'm thankful for Mr. Rob. He's always just, when he comes on, we have great conversations. He's always full of wisdom, and I really appreciate that about him. And I am going to be taking some time off from podcasting for just a few weeks, maybe till the end of the year. I don't know yet. But I'm going to definitely pray about that. A lot of things have happened in life in the last week or two. And when you're a full-time caregiver to your parents, it's, they have to come first. So I know God will open doors as He does, for everything else. But for right now, I think I wanted this to be a really good remembrance of what Thanksgiving really is, how we can be thankful. And I wanted this episode to come out before Thanksgiving, obviously, just to give people some time to listen to it. But I have some thoughts, and I know Mr. Rob will always have some wonderful thoughts about it. So I'm going to let him just start talking about thankfulness, what it means to him, and, maybe share a little bit about how they celebrate Thanksgiving. And then I'll have some thoughts here to close us out. So thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Rob. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Good. Oh,
And
thanks.
definitely, praying for you and your family. We talked before the
Yeah,
podcast about what's been going on. So
I
for
appreciate
your
that.
listeners, keep DJ and her family in prayer.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thankfulness and Thanksgiving and holidays and it's a it's a magical time. It's also a hard time for people.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, some people have a hard time being thankful for. I have fallen in that camp from time to time in my life, and I've been reminded that thankfulness is and gratitude is very important,
Yeah.
and a lot more important than I have given it credit for. But when I practice thankfulness and gratitude, life seems a lot better. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah. It's hard, I'll talk about. There's so many different things about thankfulness and gratitude. Uh, Let me just start with a very practical thing that I was taught by, someone who's way more successful than me, Danny Johnson. She called it sprouts, uh, and it's basically starting the day off with 3 to 4 things that you're grateful for, writing them down and praying about them, focusing on them. And the reason she calls it sprouts is because it's planting a seed in your mind, in your
Mm,
body, your soul.
I like
And
that.
yeah, it was beautifully taught. She does way better job of teaching this than I do. But it's a seed, it's a plant, and you have to nurture it and grow it.
Mm-hmm.
And gratitude, the practice, the habit of gratitude is that it is a sprout, it is a seed that you have to nurture and grow. And the thing that a lot of people, myself included, have a habit of doing is starting off going, "Oh, I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my wife, my kids, my family, and everything." And then it's like, but this negative thing, and that
Mm-hmm.
negative thought is like taking a lawnmower to those sprouts and running right over it. So
Yeah.
having a mindfulness, a state of thankfulness and gratitude really is important. And it takes work
It does.
to cultivate that. So,
I'll tell you, like when I wake up in the morning, I think I started this after my whole COVID thing in 2021. Um,
mhm.
every single day now I wake up and that's what I do. Like two to three things that I'm just really grateful for. But I also ask God every single day, like no matter what happens, please show me blessings or please send blessings or, even if it's a rough day, give me something good, you know,
Mhm.
um, let me see blessings even in turmoil. And um, this last week when everything was happening with my parents and stuff, it was God just showed up, you know, and I was so like, he sent the right doctors, he sent the right, like everything along the way, all the right people. And, when you look, when you're going through things like that, you're like, you can get very defeated, get very down, like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can handle this. You feel very overwhelmed. And we're human, it's okay to feel that way, but let's not stay there, right? Let's look for those blessings. Let's look for those good things. And let's be, I'm grateful that things turned out the way they did, So even around like this holiday, I think that Thanksgiving, just the word kind of
Mhm.
wakes people up. But for me, I just encourage people to be thankful every day. Have a holiday every day, you know?
That's right.
Like you don't have to eat all the food, but in your mind, have your mindset to the point where it's Thanksgiving every single day.
Mhm.
And it does so much for our spirit. Like I wrote a few things down because, like I told you before we started, my brain is at capacity. So I thought of these thoughts earlier and I'm like, I better write these down so I don't forget them. But I wrote a few things down. It was thankfulness sharpens your vision
Mhm.
because I feel like when you practice gratitude, you notice the quiet things that God is doing. And
Absolutely.
and the kind of things that normally you would rush through, you kind of stop and slow down.
Mhm.
And it adjusts your perception and how you see things. Instead of seeing things negatively, when you're thankful for them, they become a positive. How can I turn this situation in my mind into a positive?
Mhm.
And I think that's one thing, like when you're a when you're a caregiver, um, it's something that you have to do every single day because it is a very overwhelming job. Um, and any caregivers out there, you know what I'm talking about. You're blessed, I'm blessed to be able to take care of my parents. I'm blessed to see them in their older years, to be able to give them what they need and, stuff like that.
Mhm.
That's completely separate from the overwhelming, work that it takes to keep everything going. Um, but God has completely shown me so much grace and just his love and everything through the whole thing that I can wake up every day and yes, maybe I'm a little overwhelmed, but I know that God's going to show up. I know that he's going to show up and he shows up in a mighty way all the time. So that was my first thought, was that it really does sharpen your vision of what truly matters and the positiveness and the blessings that life really has for us.
I 100% agree. And I mean, our grandparents, I don't know, my grandparents did. I don't know about yours, but uh, my grandparents would say, you need to count your many blessings. I don't know if
Yeah,
anyone else has heard that, but it wasn't just, think about them, speak them. I'm
right.
I'm grateful for the couch that is in our living room. I'm grateful for the seat that I'm
Yeah,
sitting in. I'm grateful for the air that I'm getting to breathe, and I'm grateful for living in a, free country. Um,
exactly.
in all of these things, like you said, it helps shift the mind, and it reorients the focus, and
Yeah,
that is huge when you're going through a lot. There's uh, counting your blessings is very important because it helps us realign with God and His sovereignty, His
yeah.
authority and control. There's a lady. uh, Corrie ten Boom, who was in the prison camps during World War II, and she, led a lot of people to Christ, and also helped people with gratitude in concentration camps. It
Mm,
was if you've never read her story or heard her story, absolutely worth uh, going and reading. There's a video, a movie about her life and stuff too. That's really good.
mm,
Highly recommended. She is probably one of the best on gratitude and thankfulness in the worst of situations.
yeah. Oh, I'm definitely going to look that up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love stories like that where the harshest situations, someone just praises God. It kind of gives you the idea that there is nothing that I cannot be thankful for. There is, I wasn't in that situation and this person was still praising God, was still, no matter what, like Job in the Bible.
Mhm.
That's a great example of someone who his whole family died. All his cattle, everything was taken from him. And in the end, he still praised God.
Mhm.
And I've known, stories of missionaries. And I can't her name is just escaping me right now, but her husband and her went to be missionaries at a tribe. Um,
Elizabeth Elliot.
yes, yes, that's her
Yep.
name. And they ended up killing him.
Hmm.
And the men that were in their missionary group and the ladies went back and won a whole tribe to the Lord.
Hmm.
And I don't know why I'm emotional over that, but it's, I mean, when you think about someone killing the person you love and you still stand up and you go and preach God's word and win these people, the crown and glory for those women is like going to be amazing. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know why it's making me so emotional, but it truly is something that, we should all think about.
But I mean, that story in particular is there's a relationship,
Yeah.
a gratitude, a knowledge of who she was and who God was and
Yeah.
what God was calling her and her husband and her kids. Because she, if you ever watch some of her interviews, she talks about walking, hand in hand
Yeah.
with her kid or kids, into the tribe,
Yeah.
and the guy who killed her husband was the person who greeted her. If my memory serves me correct, that's
I'm pretty sure you're correct. Yeah.
and it's mm, gratitude, like helps us orient ourselves back to God. I mean, it
Yeah.
really does, and and it also brings humility. I think that allows us to see things more clearly. Going back to that focus that you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
more clearly from God's perspective of
Yeah.
what's going on, and in the hustle and bustle of the American culture and Western cultures and stuff,
Yeah.
it's hard to sit down and just be grateful because we
Mm-hmm.
don't make it a habit. We don't
Right.
make it a habit to slow down, to even recognize all the abundance that we have, around us.
Yeah. And I also want people to really think, with the way society is, there's been a lot of people in the past, I would say like 3 or 4 years, who don't spend time with their family because of politics or because they don't agree with each other. And if it's just political and religion that is keeping you from, sitting down with your family, I really want people to think about that. You don't have to talk about, but that's your family. And they're not always going to be around.
Yeah.
And if there is a relationship there, now I understand there's some families like, there's turmoil, there's abuse. Absolutely not. Right. But I'm saying if the only reason that you don't want to spend time with your family is because of politics or religion, which are the two most, you know, topics that people don't agree on, I just encourage people to look at their own hearts. You're not, you're not perfect.
We all have our faults. And I think when you, and I like that word humility, because I think when you not only come at a person and say, hey, forgive me, possibly, or just come at them with humility and say, hey, let's just have a good day. Let's not talk about this. Let's just have a good day. And I think for me, it's become really important, especially this last couple of weeks, dealing with my mom and everything that has happened. They get towards the end of their life and you're like, did I spend enough time with them? Do they know that I love them? You question, like, have I done everything to make sure that they know? And if you had a good relationship with your parents when you were younger, and now it's just a political or religious difference,
Mhm.
I don't know. I encourage you to sit down and just have Thanksgiving with them, you know, um, get back to what really matters.
Yeah. It, and the family is the most important thing. Now, yeah, the caveat is unhealthy
Right.
families,
Yeah.
have boundaries. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
don't have boundaries, you set some boundaries, before going into,
Yeah. Of
you know,
course. Yeah.
those things. And for those who, it's just not safe, don't go.
Yeah.
Um, find friends. Uh,
Obviously, there's like you said, caveats and
yeah, but for the average family, the enemy does not like God's creation, and he is going to do everything in his power
Yeah.
to keep us apart, to divide us,
Yep.
and everything. Religion, politics, you know, those were preached. Don't ever talk about those things,
Yeah.
in the house. The reality is, those are things that we need to have conversations with and
Yeah.
about it. And we need, we've lost the art of having discussion and conversations and knowing that, we love each other. We may disagree
Yeah.
and think we're boneheads, but our hearts are come from a place of love for one another.
Right.
And the enemy has twisted that to say, no, if you don't agree with me, then you don't love me. No,
Right.
I can love you and not agree with you.
Exactly.
And I can still be thankful for you and your perspective and your thoughts because they're challenging me. And I'm
Yeah.
going to have to, you know, grow and stuff. So it I know that I'm probably going to get some pushback from people, but that is my heart and what I've seen, you know, in the spiritual warfare that we live out day to day. Our family is, most important,
Yeah.
and we need to make sure that we let our family members know, I love you. I may disagree with you, but I love you.
Yeah.
I, you know, me and my best friend, growing up, we saw eye to eye on a lot of things, and then we went off to college, and perspectives changed drastically
Yeah.
for one of us, and totally in opposite ends on the political spectrum. But we still love each other, and we still, communicate and want to hang out with each other,
Yeah.
uh, despite everything. And he's like my brother, so he's family.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I always tell people. It's like I don't have to agree with you, but I love your soul. I love the person God created. And I think that was kind of goes into my next thought, which I had written down was thankfulness keeps our hearts soft.
Mhm.
And if you're thankful and you have gratitude, your heart is going to it won't harden when things come your way and hurt comes your way. It's going to keep it soft. And let's see what else. Gratitude keeps our spirit open so healing can actually reach us, right?
Yep.
I found that in my own life, going through my own healing journey these last 6 years, and God really showing me that that's why I wake up every morning grateful and thankful because I want my spirit to stay soft. I want my spirit to be teachable. Um, I want God to be able to work in my life, but as
Mhm.
well show me things where I can help other people. And you
Yeah.
can't do that if you're angry, if your heart is hard, or you're just thinking about your emotions and what you're going through.
Yep.
it doesn't work. So, so I think like that was my thought. I'm like, if you're thankful, you're tender. I think that's a good word.
Mhm.
You're tender towards life. You're tender towards people who hurt you. You're not going to become angry.
Yeah.
And although that's an emotion and not a bad emotion, it's how you react to it that
Mhm.
causes the upheaval in your life and in others' lives.
Yep. It Gratitude opens you up to being able to receive, give and receive, from a position of joy and state of joy.
Yeah.
I think, in our last meeting, we talked about anger a little bit and
Yeah.
how I tell my clients, look, you holding on to anger is like holding $100 bill in your closed fist,
Yeah.
shaking that fist at God, going, "This is my payment for all the wrongs," and bitterness starts to set in, and which
Hmm.
is never good, and that hardens the heart and resentment and all that fun stuff. And while you're doing this with that $100 bill of anger, God's going, "I got the bank.
Yeah.
I'd love to give you,
Yeah.
what's in here."
Yeah.
But you can't receive with closed fists. You have
Exactly.
to let go, and gratitude really primes you to be in that state of thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for all that you've done. Thank
Yeah.
you for your blessings, your gifts, for the opportunities, for the hardship that is helping me grow. Even though I may not like it, God, you know, it's it's a refining fire. And when we recognize that and have that gratitude, we can receive more and give more.
Yeah. I love our conversations because you always like lead right into my next thought and you don't even know what my next thought is, but
Nope,
it's
not a clue.
it's like a conversation. Like I love it. Yeah, but like my next thought was thankfulness reminds you that you're not alone.
Hmm.
Even I know for me, sometimes I feel alone. I have a full-time job. I take care of my parents. I do them. So it's like I'm constantly going. And I'm always reminded every single day when I'm thankful that even if I don't have someone right next to me, that I have God. I have a best friend who's looking out for me,
Yep.
and he says in the Bible, he's a best friend that sticks closer than a brother. That means he's your family.
Hmm.
And, you know, that is the peace and comfort that God gives you when you're saved, is that you're never going to be alone no matter what circumstance you're in. And
Yep.
I think of Elizabeth Elliot. I think of those ladies, how they had to be solid in their faith
Hmm.
and know for a fact that God was with them that whole time. That like every victory they had, he helped them get there. And I think that's the thing about soul hygiene too, is going from victim to victorious. I don't know how you can do that without God.
Yeah. It,
I don't.
it would be a lot of work, and
Hmm.
the pressure to maintain that,
Right.
is crushing.
Yeah.
Can be, for sure. And yeah, the relationship with God changes everything. Because Jesus, says, cast your burdens on me. My yoke is easy, you know, and
Yeah.
it's light. It's there's work, but he's carrying the
Yeah.
load. You're working right alongside of him, and my myself and many others, are stubborn, wanting to be independent, and
Yeah.
do it through our own power because we feel like we still have to prove ourselves, uh, and that becomes self-centered, less
Hmm.
gratitude, and it changes the dynamic. Relationships, you know, become challenging to say the least.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, God, God really is a game changer, and
Yeah.
that's and not just the head knowledge; it's a relationship, like you were saying.
It is. Yep.
And
I think the other thought I had was, I think we kind of touched on it, but thankfulness almost is an act of resistance, but not the kind of rebellion resistance. It's
mhm,
more of the resistance to push away fear, to push away, you know, bitterness and anger and I mean, people deem them as bad emotions, but like I said, they are bad when you have a negative reaction to those
Mm.
emotions. That's what is bad. But I think thankfulness, like I said, it keeps your heart soft so that you're resisting all of those. You're resisting those reactions that you would have to those emotions and keeping your heart tender. Um,
Yeah.
and I think
So,
it helps with self doubt too. That's the other thing. It really does help with self doubt.
yeah. I, so a thought occurred to me, and I heard this earlier today, so I won't take credit for it. Um, but what came to my mind as you were saying that, a couple of things. One, emotions are vibration. They have a frequency. And we're all vibration. Everything is energy. So emotions are neither good nor bad. The frequencies have different effects on our body, our mood, our
Yeah.
relationships, the how we interact with people, and the people that we attract. Because misery loves company. Let's just
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, get that out of the way. That is true. You're magnetic to the state that you're in. Bring more people in. So there's that. Gratitude, you know, like you were saying, is a disruptor of that. It, you know, pushes those negative emotions, not even negative, those emotions that are not serving you well and allowing you to live at a higher state, that is more in line with God and his kingdom. Um, it, nullifies that. It disperses that. Um, and the other thing, the one that I think is most important is gratitude allows you to be present in the moment. And that is huge because in our culture,
Yeah.
everything and everyone doesn't want that. They
Mhm.
don't want you. They want you thinking about the future. They want you thinking about the past, politics, religion, and that kind of stuff,
Yep.
you know, gets you out of the present and who you're with, what's going on, the abundance that you have, and gets you thinking about all the things that are not right in your world. And so gratitude brings you back to center, back to, hey, there's a lot of great things and a lot of great people around me, even if they're knuckleheads.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and God has put them in my life for a purpose. And I'm grateful for that. Uh,
Exactly.
even if I'm challenged. So, but that I think is probably the biggest lesson and that I was reminded of earlier about gratitude is it keeps us present and focused on the here and now because we're not supposed to worry about tomorrow, what
No.
we're going to eat, drink, where, and whatever happens. We're supposed to be present, and uh, that is challenging in
Yeah.
in the hustle and bustle of our society today.
Yeah. Well, I chuckled a little bit when you said that because that was my next thought. So we will keep going. I think the last thing that I had on here was just, a few Bible verses that I think God really keeps on my heart, I think, when I'm having a rough day or I need to come back to that thankfulness and that gratitude. And I think one of them was, I think everyone knows this one is Psalm 107:1. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. And I think that, we had mentioned that earlier, like it, when you're thankful, like you see his mercy, you see his grace. We're in our own thoughts and we're doing our own thing and we're not being thankful for the things we have. That's when like envy comes in. And that's when, all these emotions can come in that don't serve you. They don't serve you. Um, and I think one of the other ones was First Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. So, and that's a good verse, this, for Christians to always remember. And
Mhm.
even if you're not a Christian or you don't believe in God, in layman's terms, be thankful all the time, no
Mhm.
matter what. In everything, give thanks. The
Mhm.
breath you take, give thanks. The shoes on your feet, give thanks. If you have electricity, if you have a roof over your head, if you're eating every single day, give thanks.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of, it is a choice. Like we have the choice to renew that thankfulness and that gratitude every single day.
Yep.
And we should be renewing it because it also renews our soul and it renews our mind.
Mhm. The verse that comes to my mind as we're talking about this is Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, through prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And
Yeah.
the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ. And and that is huge because thankfulness is very specifically stated in
Yeah.
that. And that peace doesn't come without the thankfulness.
Yeah. I love that. This was a really good episode, I think, and I really like that we talked about this right before Thanksgiving. And I hope that it helps somebody. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, that's a topic everyone talks about," but sometimes we just need a reminder.
Mhm.
We just need
Absolutely.
to listen to someone outside of our own bubble, who
Mhm.
has a different perspective, and it's okay to just sit and meditate and think about the good things that God has given you or the good things in life. And, I tell everyone, I'm like, you cannot look at DNA, you cannot look at creation without seeing God. You just can't do it. And there are so many signs that He gives us in creation and in our DNA and, in the people we are, that nothing is too big for Him.
Nope.
Nothing. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I have that knowledge. I'm thankful that I have, salvation. I'm thankful that He died for our sins. And I just hope that someone else is able to take this thought that we're giving them and really just meditate on it and maybe change their perspective a little bit.
Uh, Hope so too. And
Yeah.
it's always a pleasure to get to come on and talk
Yeah.
about all the fun things and challenging things.
Right. Yeah. Do you have any last thoughts that you'd like to leave?
I would say, going back to the beginning where I talked about the sprout journal, write it out. Write
Yeah,
out, first thing in the morning, and then speak that gratitude. Because the spoken word is powerful. Our
it is.
words have power. And allow God to change your mind, change your heart
Mhm.
as you cultivate the habit of gratitude and thankfulness, because
Yeah.
it is a habit.
Yeah. I think I was going to say one last thing. My friend Victor Straw, he has a YouTube channel, and his last YouTube, he does like the little 5 to 8 minute little encouraging thing in the mornings, and it was on habits. And that's another thing. Like if thankfulness and gratitude become a habit every single day, when you miss a day, you're going to be like, "Whoa, what happened?"
Mhm.
And that's with anything. That's with weightlifting, losing weight, whatever you're doing in life, if it becomes a habit, you miss it when you miss a day.
Absolutely.
And that's what I hope that people can take from that, is that a habit of thankfulness and gratitude every single day will literally change your life.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being here. I always love our conversations. And I know if I don't take the rest of the year off, maybe we'll do a Christmas special.
Sounds good. Keep me posted.
Yes, I will. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Soul Hygiene. We'll see you later.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. It's not about perfection, it's about redemption, resilience, and the God who never stops searching for us. If something here spoke to you, let it stir your heart toward healing and toward the Redeemer. Share it with someone who needs a little light, a little laughter, or a little faith to keep going. I'm Miss TJ, and this is Soul Hygiene, where we learn, grow, forgive, and keep walking together in grace.